Namaskar everyone. I welcome you all on the behalf of StudyIQ IAS. My name is Pritesh Mathurkar. I am the Senior Faculty of Geography, Environment and Ecology in StudyIQ IAS. And ladies and gentlemen, side by side, I am also your tour guide because the person whom you are seeing on the screen right now, I have been to 49 countries and I have traveled across the 4 continents of the world per se. So for me, geography is not only my profession but also my passion. Today, guys, humans have become the greatest threat to the natural environment out there. The anthropogenic activities which are being pursued today in terms of rapid industrialization, urbanization, and also mass scale tourism, they are resulting into anthropogenic activities induced mass extinction rate where it exceeds 1000 to 10,000 times that of the natural extinction rate as we speak out here. Now, what better way to present this fact than to showcase you this image? So this is the image of the world's clearest freshwater lake fed by the glaciers out there. So the name of this lake, it is called as Lake Constance. So this is the part of the Nelson National Park out there in the southern island of New Zealand. What is so special about this lake is that this lake is having optical purity of around 70 to 80 meters. Means you can see in the waters very clearly up to a depth of 70 to 80 meters, guys. This is a alpine lake surrounded by the alpine forest out there. But now the waters of this lake are being threatened by a invasive alien species. So in today's discussion, I will be zoning on the discussion of the location of this lake, where it is situated. Then I will be discussing basically what is invasive alien species which is threatening this lake out there, and today we'll also discuss that what threats in general do invasive alien species pose to biodiversity. We will be also discussing how climate change can basically give a boost to the invasive alien species spreading, how it can threaten the natural climate resilience of the ecosystems out there, and most importantly, what can be the preventive measures to basically control the spread of invasive alien species. So whatever I'm discussing on this board, it will be readily available on my Telegram group. It is CAC with PM, just as it is after the lecture. So you don't have to worry. This is going to be a one-stop destination for all of you for discussing of the current affairs out there. Mind you, such type of current affairs is what UPSC normally taps into, especially in the prelims. So now let us begin up with the discussion of this particular entry, and let us generalize this for the entire world and for the India too. If I'm talking about Lake Constance, guys, so Lake Constance is a part of the Nelson Lakes National Park. So in New Zealand, we are having numerous national parks out there. Out of this, the Nelson Lakes National Park is very much what I can say sacred for the people of New Zealand. Why? Because as you all know, the First Nations or the Aborigines in the sense, those people who are the native inhabitants of a place. So the native inhabitants of the place, they are a tribe called as Maoris. So Maoris settled in New Zealand approximately 800 to 900 years before from the Pacific Southwest island grouping of Samoa. So for Maoris, this place is very much sacred. Why? Because they believe that the magical blue-violet waters of Lake Constance are basically heaven, in the sense that this lake is called as the Lake of Peaceful Lands, and in the ancient times they used to purify the bones of the dead using the waters of this particular lake out there. In fact, the name of this lake according to the local Maori tribe is like what I can say, it's very much confusing out there. I will try to basically utter those words, but sorry for that if I'm not able to speak in the official Maori dialect out there. So the name of the lake according to the local Maori dialect is Rotomairewhenua. So Rotomairewhenua, I might misspell it, but yes, this is how the official Maori dialect name of this lake is. Now when I'm talking about this Nelson National Park, so this national park does not have only one lake. If I take you to the official tour guide of this, so I am downloading it from the New Zealand's official website, quoting the official resources so that you can also understand how to approach one particular current affair. So this is the map of basically the Nelson National Park out there. So if you can see over here, Lake Constance is in the southern end of this. To hike over here, to go over here, you have to cross certain lakes like Lake Rototi, then you have to also cross Lake Rotorua. So Lake Rotorua, Lake Rotiti, these are all the lakes which are situated downstream, and this lake is little bit in the higher altitudes. So that is why this lake is having alpine kind of vegetation surrounding it, as you can see it in the picture. Now, what has happened is that in the waters of this particular lake, you have discovery of an invasive alien species. And what is the name of that invasive alien species? So, the name of this particular invasive alien species, it is basically referred to as so this is basically a macroscopic algae. Let me just open up the image again. Yeah. So this is basically a microscopic alga, and the scientific name of this microscopic alga, it is referred to as Lindavia. So as you can clearly see in the picture, this microscopic algae called as Lindavia, once it starts doing photosynthesis, it basically excretes long viscous strands. So you are seeing this viscous strands out here, dark gray in color. So this viscous strands, they tend to form a slime. Slime meaning a thick pasty kind of substance, and this thick pasty kind of slime, it basically covers the entire water surface, and as it covers the entire water surface, it stops sunlight penetrating into the lake out there. Now for the very first time, this was not present in Lake Constance. This was present in the downstream lakes like Lake Rotorua, and if you go into the southern New Zealand, you have series of glaciated lakes like Tekapo, like Wanaka, Lake Hawaii, and you also have Lake Wakatipu. I have been to New Zealand, so that is why I know all of the names of the lakes out there. You don't have to remember. I'm just giving you a reference that in majority of the lakes of New Zealand, there was a survey done approximately 8 years back. So around 380 lakes were surveyed. Out of those 380 lakes, staggering close to 200 lakes were found to be infected with this particular invasive alien species. So this invasive alien species called as Lindavia, in New Zealand, it is referred to as Lake Snot. This is referred to as Lake Snot out there. Why? Because for the thick viscous slime it develops and it starts blocking the sunlight penetration beneath. Now, if you go to New Zealand, so New Zealand government is doing fantastic job. They are erecting billboards, they are erecting signboards, and they are urging the tourists to basically wash their gear, to wash their shoes, to wash their clothes before reaching to these locations. Why? Because recently in the last month, so one man had basically went into the lake Rotorua downstream, and he just had a dip in the lake. So on his chest hair, they found basically this algae, and now this algae has reached Lake Nelson too. So now the question which comes out, that why this invasive alien species or why this particular algae is so goddamn basically detrimental to the local ecology, and what is the threat of basically the invasive alien species in general. So if I'm talking about this invasive alien species, if I'm talking about this IAS, don't confuse IAS with what you're preparing for, okay? So this invasive alien species called as Lindavia, so this was first discovered in early 2000s. And you know from where this has come? So this has come from North America, particularly the Los Angeles region, the Los Angeles County, and this entered into New Zealand through fishing gear. Fishing gear in the sense that whenever tourists come, so they tend to carry their respective gears with them, right? So in general, when I'm talking about the introduction of this invasive alien species in New Zealand, it has come from fishing gears out there. Now you might wonder that why are we calling this as invasive alien species? See, invasive alien species means that species which is non-native to that particular place. Non-native in the sense that it is not a part of the local ecology, it is not a part of that particular habitat. It has been introduced either deliberately. What Britishers did to India, they deliberately introduced water hyacinth, they deliberately introduced eucalyptus, and today both of them have become invasive alien species. So eucalyptus, as it is abbreviated in the northern plains, safeda, it starts sucking in all the moisture, it starts sucking in all the groundwater towards it. So the other plants, the other species, they basically are desiccated, they are completely dried out. And water hyacinth, within 12 days it has a tendency to proliferate on the lake surface, resulting into basically complete loss of sunlight penetration beneath. And because of this, what happens is the marine ecology completely collapses, guys. Now, when I'm talking about invasive alien species, so these are non-native species to one particular place. They're introduced deliberately, or they can come because of basically just when we are not taking even preventive measures out there. So anthropogenic activities today are the number one proponent. In fact, if I'm talking about the invasive alien species, so invasive alien species today are using humans as their vector. So today humans have become vector for the proliferation of IS globally. And now, what is the threat these IS pose to the global environment? So I'm making a sort of mind map, a flow chart for all of you, so that you can use this whenever you will be discussing this in mains, or you can use this to revise environment and ecology too. So if I'm talking about threats to the local ecosystem or threats to the local ecology out there, so the most potent threat which invasive alien species poses to the local ecosystem, it is basically the loss of biodiversity. Why the loss of biodiversity? Simply because as soon as IS enters into an ecosystem, it starts altering the food chain, it starts altering the food web. So in a nutshell, if I'm trying to discuss this with you all, let me just give you a good insight into it, like how it has the tendency to alter everything out there. So see, as soon as the IS enters, what is its impact? So it results into harmful algal blooms. So in the monsoon times, you might be seeing a greenish kind of algae developing, which blocks the sunlight and it starts sucking in all the oxygen from the below waters. So the biological oxygen demand increases, the dissolved oxygen decreases, resulting into the collapse of the marine ecology. It has the tendency to basically create a novel habitat of its own. Anoxia, it can change the water circulation pattern, the amount of sedimentation, the penetration of light. It can result into basically modification of community structure through predation or competition. So some IS, they can act as the ultimate predator, or they can basically exclude the other species out completely. So today, palm oil, which is now majorly used today, so palm pod is an invasive alien species. It basically does not let any other tree to grow near it, and it starts sucking up all the moisture from the ground out there. So it proliferates very quickly. It does not let the other trees to proliferate beneath it, so the undergrowth is completely disturbed. So the most important point over here to remember is that invasive alien species, they have the tendency to cause biodiversity loss, and apart from that, they can also result into what? They can also result into species extinction. So why species extinction? Because when I'm talking about the invasive alien species, they can compete with the local species for nutrients, they can compete for space, they can compete for nesting sites, they can release certain toxins which are detrimental for the local species, they can cause new disease transmission, and most importantly, they can impact the ecosystems engineering. Ecosystems engineering meaning that if a ecosystem is being driven primarily by, let's say, sunlight, or if it is primarily driven by some water channel, if it is primarily driven by some basically chemical signatures out there, you are having presence of certain chemical elements, you are having presence of certain rocks which are essential for the growth of some of the other structures out there or some of the other species out there. For example, for proliferation of the coral reefs, you require basically the coral polyps. The coral polyps, they will give their exoskeleton as support structure to the marine algae called as zooxanthellae. Then only your coral reefs will proliferate. So sunlight, water, presence of certain rocks, or the support structures out there, everything can get altered. So when I'm talking about invasive alien species, they can also cause rapid species extinction. According to the latest research today, 60% of the global extinctions, how much guys? 60% of the global extinctions today are happening because of what? Because of the invasive alien species. This is very important. And what is the next major impact? So invasive alien species today are basically posing the greatest threat to the natural resilience of the ecosystem. To what? To basically climate change. So we all know that we are living in the era of global warming induced climate change. So the natural resilience to the climate change today because of the invasive alien species is decreasing. The wildfire regimes are altering because of the invasive alien species, their proliferation into the higher altitudes, their proliferation into higher latitudes. What is happening is that the local ecology out there, the temperate, the taiga ecology, which was immune from basically certain aspects of climate change, today it has started to alter. For example, if I'm taking you to Siberia today, so there mosses, lichens, and certain basically plant species, they have become invasive. So they are resulting into the rocks turning black. So as the rocks turn black, they start absorbing more heat. More heat absorbed, the more permafrost melts, and the feedback loop continues. So the natural resilience to the climate change in terms of wildfires, in terms of heat waves, in terms of basically disease tolerance, all of it is getting altered. So now you are seeing numerous viral outbreaks, bacterial outbreaks happening in the local ecosystems, which were not supposed to happen if IS were not introduced either deliberately or through natural measures out there. So what is its impact on humans? Because ultimately everything what is happening in the environment, it is going to impact us too. We are the only species today which provision 100% from the environment. Means Our existence on earth, the air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat, it is coming from where? It is being provisioned from the environment itself, right? So this has the propensity to alter livelihood on a great basis. So the livelihood can get compromised. Why it can get compromised? Because once the invasive alien species spread, what can get compromised? The agricultural systems can get completely altered. The animal health can get altered. Why? Because they can cause diseases too. So ultimately, what is going to get impacted is basically food security. So now, guys, the question arises: what should be the preventive steps to control their proliferation? I'm writing everything on the board, guys. Why? Because I want all of you to keep this as fodder points. Current affairs will come and go, but in the mains, what is required? In prelims, what is required? You remember the harsh facts. So now, if you go by the latest guidelines of IUCN, like how you can basically prevent the proliferation of IS. So the prevention slash basically the adaptation, or dare I speak, not adapt, we should not be living with the mitigation of the invasive alien species. If I'm quoting the latest graph of there, like what can be the preventive measures out there. So this is very important. Focus on the screen, everybody. This will help you in understanding how to tackle with the proliferation of the invasive alien species. So on this axis is the area occupied, on this axis is the time out there, and what can be the effective measures out there. So if the IS is absent, you should go for prevention. Prevention in the sense the invasive alien species should not get introduced in the very first instance itself. So now, how can we do it? What can be the steps taken for prevention out there? So the very first step which can be taken for prevention is basically the identification for pathways. The pathways of infection or the pathways of introduction. So from which part or from which pathway the IS is getting introduced? Is it getting introduced due to basically some human activities? It is getting introduced due to ballast water pollution. Today this has become a very potent threat. If I just showcase you what is ballast water pollution, let me just open it up for all of you so we can have a good discussion out there. So see, what is ballast water? Today this has become a very potent, what I can say, carrier for the invasive alien species. In fact, some of it has resulted into the spread of some invasive snails on the west coast of Kerala, resulting into the loss of productivity of the banana cultivation out there. So see, whenever a container ship or a cargo ship sells unloaded, so what is done is the sea water is pumped. So this is the hull of the ship, and over here you are having ballast water tank. So when the ship is unloaded, the sea water is pumped. So let's say ship is coming from Dar es Salaam to, let's say, Marmagoa. So the water of the Dar es Salaam will be pumped into the ship because the ship is coming empty. So that when the ship is sailing in the open waters, it is basically stabilized. Once it reaches the coasts of basically, let's say, Marmagoa, this ballast water will be emptied into the waters of Marmagoa and the ship will be loaded then. So this water, is it native to this particular area? The answer is no. So you need to identify the pathways for introduction of the species. This is very important. Then number two, we need to have pre-border quarantine. If we are knowing that yes, one particular invasive species is coming from one particular area, we need to quarantine what? We need to quarantine the imports. We need to have import control at the border itself. This is very, very important for prevention. Very, very important for basically this particular area, prevention. And along with that, we need to do what? Along with that, we also need to ensure number 3, that we need to have border biosecurity. So as we scan for basically any drugs, as we scan for any kind of illicit activities going on along the border areas, similarly the border areas also need to be scanned for the threat of invasive alien species. So border biosecurity is very, very important. Now, if at all this happens, that if you are having invasive alien species entry, if it is small and if it is localized, we should go for what? We should go for eradication quickly. Because unless and until we don't eradicate it, then once it enters into basically proliferation stage, once it enters into the stage where it starts contamination, so then it becomes very, very difficult. So the second stage is eradication. Quickly you should have all the measures necessary. For eradication, what is necessary? For eradication, you need to have proper management and you need to have global efforts, because unless and until the data is shared, then it is not going to have any kind of good impact on the eradication out there. If the spread is increased, then you should go for containment. Containment meaning you should start isolating that particular area. What is being now done in New Zealand? So New Zealand, where this Lindavia invasive alien species is now proliferating, they have localized the areas. They are clearing it off hectare by hectare. And you know, this is what I have witnessed. So I went to New Zealand in the year 2018. There, along with this, you are having 2 or 3 plant species also, which are basically acting as invasive alien species. In fact, the mountains have started to turn yellow because of that. It's a flowering plant out there. So they are clearing up mountain by mountain. But this stage is pretty costly out there, because then it requires heavy amount of resources. And lastly, if it is widespread and abundant, the only thing we can do is asset protection. So this is the most detrimental state, when instead of mitigating, we have to now adapt it. So whatever resources we have to protect it. In a nutshell, invasive alien species today are the greatest threat to the environment out there. In a nutshell, invasive alien species in the future, they are going to pose the greatest threat to food security out there. So food security, nutritional security, both. And as climate change intensifies, their proliferation becomes very easy. Why? Because they will be able to adapt to higher altitudes and higher latitudes out there. So this topic has to be dealt in great scrutiny. I have given you the fodder points. Now it's your turn. Whenever current affairs come, you keep on tapping. And it's my promise to you now, since the prelim is approaching, as and when such gravity current affairs come, I will be there to discuss all of this with you. So please remember to follow me on my official Telegram handle. My official Telegram handle is CAC with PM, where I'll be keeping on discussing such important stuff. And please remember that StudyIQ IAS has always been at the forefront of providing you quality, excellent, affordable education. So our basically resolution plus batch is starting on basically 9th of December. So if you want to start this incredible journey with us, where if you qualify the prelims, you are eligible for mains residential program, your lodging, your boarding, your eating, value-added test series, one-to-one guidance, everything is taken care of by us. And once you qualify the mains, you are also eligible for interview guidance program, and monthly the toppers of the test series will be able to earn cash awards. So You can use my code PM Live and you can start your journey with us only in 12,999 rupees, the target year being 2027. And if you are targeting for 2028, so again, this batch is also starting on 9th of December. Please don't forget to use my code PM Live and you will be able to start your journey only in 31,999 rupees. So this batch will be special because here we'll be starting off with the basics, then advanced, and we'll also have basically one-to-one mentorship out there. So for those of you targeting 2027, you can also have a resolution plus batch. Things over there will be little bit accelerated. For 2028, this is the most golden opportunity. Okay. So on the behalf of StudyIQ IAS, I thank each and every one of you. I hope that all of these discussions will help you to get good marks. So until next time, until the next great adventure, please keep on smiling. Please keep on working hard because that is the ultimate crux of life. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Bye bye.